River cruises tend to include a lot more in the cruise fare than ocean cruises. On a river cruise, once you've paid your cruise fare, there's not really that much extra that you can pay for. Most river cruises normally include drinks with meals, so you'll have beer and wine and soft drinks with lunch and dinner. They'll normally have free tea and coffee and water too, so the only drinks you really pay for is maybe the odd Diet Coke in an evening. That's the only thing you're going to pay for. There's not casinos on here, there's not photographers taking your picture. There's not really that much that you can spend extra on. Once you've paid for a river cruise, that's pretty much it. They normally include gratuities as well, and they include Wi-Fi. A lot of river cruise lines will include excursions too. We're on a Saga cruise right now, and this one has a couple of excursions included. I've also taken a river cruise with Emerald Waterways, and that cruise included an excursion every day. Most will include some. There are a few budget river cruise lines that don't include them, but generally speaking, river cruise lines include some excursions. Ocean cruises do not include as much as river cruises. They'll normally include your accommodation, so your cabin. It'll include the transport, aka the ship taking you between the ports, and it will include your food. On an ocean cruise, you have to pay extra for drinks. Most people will either buy a drinks package or they will pay as you go, and it's kind of a similar price to what you'd find in a pub or a bar on land. You'll also have to pay extra for things like Wi-Fi. That's not included in most ocean cruises. Most ocean cruises do not include any excursions either. When you get to port, you're free just to wander off and do whatever you like. If you're taking a river cruise, you kind of have to be prepared to get up early, earlier at least than you would on an ocean cruise. Because the ships are smaller, there's normally one place or maybe two where you'll get breakfast, but breakfast is pretty much a set thing. It might be 7 till 9, and if you miss it, you've missed breakfast. Tours and excursions tend to go off pretty early too, so you might have breakfast till 9 and an excursion at 9:30, but pretty much everybody on this ship is up early, they're up, they're out. There's not so much nightlife on river ships, but I think the day kind of just moves earlier. On an ocean cruise, you are free to get up and go to bed whenever you like. There's normally entertainment late into the evening. There might be a theatre show at about 10, followed by a deck party or something. So generally speaking, people don't go to bed too early on ocean cruises. Of course, this does depend a lot on which cruise line you're on. On some cruise lines, the ship will be completely asleep by 10 p.m, but on other cruise ships, they'll be just waking up at that time. It isn't such a big deal if you miss breakfast, because there's pretty much continuous food on ocean cruises. Because there's so many options, even if you've missed the buffet breakfast or the main dining room breakfast, there'll normally be some snacks around. There'll be a sort of changeover between lunch. There isn't really any need to get up early on an ocean cruise, and most people do not. I could probably sleep for about 24 hours straight in an inside cabin because they're so dark and they're just really snuggly and lovely. One thing that surprised me about my first river cruise was how friendly the other guests are. I know people on ocean cruises can be friendly, and they are. You can make friends as much as you like, but it's just not the same as on a river cruise. On a river cruise, you'll probably only have about 100, maybe 150 passengers, which means that you see the same people over and over again. So once you make friends with someone, you're going to see them at breakfast, you're going to start seeing them everywhere once you've spoken. I can't even remember the amount of names that I'm supposed to remember on this cruise, let alone their actual names. Table sharing is also common on a lot of river cruise lines, so you will get to know your table mates. There are some river cruise lines where you don't have to table share, but because it's a smaller restaurant, it is more likely. There is, of course, the opportunity to make friends on an ocean cruise, but it's completely possible to go an entire cruise without speaking to any other guest, and I've probably done that on some cruises. If you want to make friends, you can join someone's trivia team, you can talk to someone at the bar, but generally speaking, you don't speak to people as much as you would on a river cruise. Going on a river cruise just made me realise how you can go on an ocean cruise and speak to nobody. You can disembark after maybe 2 weeks on a cruise, and you still don't even recognise the other guests, let alone know them all. If you do table share, which you can on a lot of ocean cruises, you will of course get to know your table mates, but I'm a big fan of freestyle dining, where you just show up and you are seated wherever you like, whenever you would like. If you do go for a more freestyle kind of cruise, there's no reason for you to meet the same passengers again and again. If you want to get on and off of a river ship, you just walk off the ship. It could not be easier. You might have to exchange your key for a boarding card, or you might have to scan yourself in and out, but you pretty much just walk off. There's no security. You can leave the ship within about 60 seconds. When you go to board an ocean cruise ship for the first time, your bags will be scanned and you'll have to walk through a metal detector. It's very much like going through security at an airport, and they have to do that because they have so many people coming on these cruise ships. You'll have to check in, you'll have to show your passport, and it can take a bit of time to check in and go through security to board an ocean ship. Every time an ocean cruise ship docks and you want to get back on, you're going to have to go through security and they're going to scan your bags. Most of the time it's not a problem, but it can just mean you have to wait a little bit before you can get on board. It's definitely not as easy to get on and off an ocean ship as it is a river ship. When you're on an ocean cruise, it is the staff who will scan you on and they will scan you off so that they know how many people are on land and how many people are on the ship. This is really, really important, but the staff do it for you, so there's kind of no way that you can get missed. It'd be very, very easy to just wander off on a river cruise, but that doesn't happen on an ocean cruise. Most things on a river cruise happen at a set time. Lunch and dinner will normally be at a set time, and if you're not there then you miss lunch or dinner. It's just because the ships are smaller and there's less options, but it does tend to be a bit more regimented than an ocean cruise. A lot of river cruise lines will have a couple of options for lunch, maybe like a light lunch and a sit-down lunch, but you're not going to ever get the variety that you would on an ocean cruise. Because the ocean ships can be so big, you might have 8 or 10 restaurants, you might have 10 different bars and a theatre and loads of live music venues. Because there's so much choice, the cruise can be whatever you want it to be. If you're someone who likes to relax, there's so many opportunities for that. If you're someone who needs to have your days filled, who likes to have a really, really busy cruise schedule, there are cruise lines for that too. You can really make an ocean cruise whatever you would like it to be. There's so much variety within ocean cruise lines, and there are so many ocean cruise lines to choose from that it really is possible to tailor the cruise exactly to you. If you're someone who doesn't like formal dining, you don't have to do it. There's so many other options. If you're someone who wants to be out until 2 in the morning, there are options for that. If you're someone who prefers to be in bed at 9, there's cruise lines for that. There's a cruise line for everybody, and it's just finding the right cruise line for the right person. There are so many options on ocean cruises when it comes to time, especially if you pick a freestyle cruise where you can show up whenever you'd like. The last ocean cruise that I took was with Marella, and there were 5 options on board which didn't cost anything for lunch and for dinner, and more that you could pay for. So there's so much choice. If you fancy just eating in the buffet today and then you want to go to the main dining room, then you want an Italian, then you want a pizza, there's anything you can imagine on a cruise somewhere. Price is a big difference. River cruises are generally more expensive than ocean cruises. This is just because the ships are smaller, there's less passengers, so you don't get any of those economies of scale that you get with an ocean ship. River cruises can be extra expensive if you want a balcony like this one. The options in terms of cabins are normally balconies or windows. That's all you have on a river cruise. There isn't room for inside cabins. Generally speaking, ocean cruises are much cheaper than river cruises, but this is just because they don't include as much, and because so many people on there, they can charge a lower base price. Having said that, it's much easier to come away from an ocean cruise with a really hefty onboard spend than it is on a river cruise. The river cruise season is actually pretty short, and that means that the ships will sail maybe in summer, and in winter they'll go away. They'll normally have a refurb, but they will be sleeping throughout the winter. Because of this, you can't really get any cheap out-of-season bargains because it always is the season if the ships are running. Ocean cruises literally never stop. You can go on an ocean cruise year-round. They'll usually do a season in one place and then they will reposition to do another season in another place. For example, ships that are in Northern Europe during summer, they tend to go to warmer climates during the winter because people don't really want to cruise when it's rainy and miserable. I can't really blame them. I would do the same. You can get really, really cheap cruises if you're going on the repositioning cruise, which is where you start in one place and you finish somewhere else. These can be seriously, seriously cheap. I do have another video on this channel about how you can cruise for under £50 a night, and repositioning cruises are a really, really good way to do that. I'll link to that video in the description and the YouTube card. Make sure you check it out. Towns and cities normally pop up around the rivers, which means that when you stop on a river cruise, you're more than likely going to be right in the heart of the city, and you can just wander off and see everything without having to get transfers. You're not going to have to get a tender. You're already there and everything is on your doorstep. Because there's so few passengers on a river cruise ship, even if you are docked with 3 or 4 other ships, which does happen quite regularly, it doesn't feel touristy wherever you go. You're not out just spotting the different cruise lines because there's so few passengers compared to ocean cruising. Ocean cruises obviously have to stick to the ocean, which means that sometimes they will dock at an industrial port by the ocean, and the place where you want to go is maybe a few hours inland. If you do your research, this is no problem at all. It's often easy to do independent excursions or book excursions through the cruise line, but when you don't know about these things and you think that you're going to Rome and you dock in Civitavecchia, it's not the same thing. I hope that you're proud of me of how I say Civitavecchia now. I'm not sure if it's right, but I've literally spent 3 years trying to say that word. Just a quick flashback here to me in one of my earliest videos trying to say the word Civitavecchia. When you dock on an ocean cruise, you may be docked with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, or I've actually been docked with 8 other cruise ships in one port. When we visited St. Petersburg, we were docked with 8 other cruise ships, which was just insane. That means that when you go to a famous tourist attraction, you see so many other cruise groups, and you see more people from cruises than locals by far. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's nice to be within a group of tourists, but if you really want to get to the heart of a place, a river cruise is definitely an easier way to do that. River cruise ships tend to be more similar to each other than ocean cruise ships do. There's not that much different that they can really do within the confines of about 3 decks. Most river ships will have one big lounge, they'll have one big restaurant, they might have a few other little things like a gym and a spa, but generally speaking it's a restaurant, a lounge and the top deck, which has some beds on it, and everyone tends to spend their time there. There are so many things on board ocean ships, and there is so much variety between ships. Even ships of the same cruise line can be completely different, so you definitely need to do your research if you are going on a cruise. I really like the variety. I like to get on a new ship and run around and see where everything is and what's on board. I find it really, really exciting. It's definitely one of my favourite parts about cruising. I do find cruise ships very, very, very cool, very, very interesting. They're engineering masterpieces, and how they put them together, they build them in blocks and they flip them upside down and put the ships together, is just mind-blowing to me. Absolutely insane. I was actually pretty surprised when I started taking river cruises that a lot of people who are on the river cruises haven't been on ocean cruises, and a lot of ocean cruisers don't consider river cruising. I did think that more people would do both, but it seems to be that a lot of people don't. They either stick on the rivers or they stick on the ocean. I really like both, and I'm glad that I've had the chance to experience both. I don't think river cruising is ever going to overtake ocean cruising for me. I still do love the ocean ships, but it's amazing to be on the river and just sit and watch scenery like this for hours and hours and hours. It's brilliant. Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing. I have loads more river cruise content and ocean cruise content on this channel. That's it from me. I'll see you in the next video.